They playfully sent the infertile alien princess with a Terran, but she returned with a son. She stood at the edge of the great hall, calm on the outside and quiet inside. Princess Alira of the Vierks Empire had learned long ago how to hide her thoughts. The hall was full of light and color, but to her it always felt cold. This was where decisions were made. Decisions about planets, trade routes, wars, and bloodlines. It was also where she had been quietly erased. The nobles sat in wide circles, wearing bright robes that showed their rank. Their voices filled the air, soft but sharp. They spoke of alliances and future heirs. They never spoke her name unless they had to. Alira was known across the empire for one reason. She could not have children. The doctors had said it when she was young. The priests had repeated it. The scholars had written it into official records. Her body, they claimed, was complete in every way except one. She was healthy, intelligent, and strong, but her species required very specific conditions for reproduction. According to all known science, she lacked them. So the empire decided she would never rule. Not openly, not with anger, but with smiles and polite distance. She became a symbol of something unfortunate but useful, a princess who could be sent away without loss. That was why she was standing there now. "The Terrans have requested a cultural exchange," one of the elders said. His voice carried easily through the hall. "They wish to learn our customs, we will learn theirs." Soft laughter followed. The word Terran still sounded strange to many in the Empire. Humans were new to the stars, fast learners, emotional and unpredictable, useful but not important. At least that was what the Empire believed. "We will send Princess Alira," another noble added lightly. "She has no political ties that could be damaged." More quiet laughter. No one looked at her face. The decision was made in moments, 1 year on Earth. One Terran assigned to her as a guide and companion. It was framed as an honor. Alira knew better. It was a joke wrapped in courtesy. Send the infertile princess to the young species. Nothing would come of it. Alira bowed as expected. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "I will represent the Empire with dignity." No one doubted that. Dignity was the one thing she had never lost. The journey to Earth took weeks. Alira spent most of it alone, reading about human history. She found it confusing and fascinating. Humans had no unified empire, yet they cooperated often. They fought, but they also healed. They failed, but they tried again and again. When she arrived, Earth surprised her. It was loud, colorful, and full of movement. Humans walked quickly, spoke freely, and smiled often. They did not lower their eyes when they saw her. They stared openly, curious but not afraid. Her assigned Terran met her at the spaceport. His name was Evan. He was not important, at least not by Imperial standards. He held no title. He wore simple clothes. His posture was relaxed and his expression was open. He bowed slightly, not because he had to, but because he chose to. "Welcome to Earth, Princess Alira," he said. "I hope your stay here is a good one." She studied him carefully. He did not look at her like something fragile or broken. He looked at her like a guest. "That depends," she replied. "On what you consider good," he smiled. "Fair enough." Evan was a cultural engineer. His job was to help visiting species understand human society and adapt without stress. He explained things clearly and without pride. He never spoke as if humans were superior. He never spoke as if they were inferior either. Alira noticed this quickly. Her living space was simple but comfortable. Natural light filled the rooms. Plants grew near the windows. Evan explained that humans liked greenery. It made them feel calm. Over the first few weeks, he showed her cities, oceans, and quiet places where humans rested. He answered her questions honestly, even when they were difficult. One evening, as they sat watching the sky darken, Alira asked, "Why did your leaders agree to this exchange?" Evan thought for a moment. "Because we don't like being told something is impossible." She looked at him. "Impossible things exist." "Sure," he said, "but we still try." That answer stayed with her. As time passed, Alira began to notice changes in herself, not emotional changes, though those came too. She felt lighter here, less watched, less judged. But there were physical changes as well. Small things at first, different patterns of rest, subtle shifts in her body that she could not explain. She said nothing. She visited human medical centers as part of the exchange. Human doctors spoke openly about failure. They admitted mistakes. They shared data freely. Alira was shocked by this. In the Empire, knowledge was controlled. Here it was shared. One doctor spoke passionately about genetic adaptability. "Life finds ways to surprise us," she said. especially when different systems meet. Alira listened closely. Months passed. Her bond with Evan deepened not through grand gestures but through quiet moments. Shared meals, long conversations, comfortable silence. He never asked her about her condition. Never treated her differently. For the first time in her life, she felt whole without needing to prove it. One morning, she woke feeling strange. Her senses were sharper, her thoughts slower, heavier. She knew something was wrong or different. She requested a private medical scan. The human doctor frowned at the results, then checked again, then called another specialist. Alira sat very still. Finally, the doctor looked at her with disbelief and care. "Princess, this should not be possible according to your records." Alira's voice was calm. "Tell me, you are carrying a child." The room felt unreal. Alira did not speak. She placed a hand over her abdomen, her mind racing. Impossible. The word echoed again and again. The doctors explained what they could. Human biology, environmental factors, emotional bonding. None of it made complete sense yet, but the result was clear. Life. Alira left the medical center in silence. Evan was waiting outside. He saw her face and knew something had changed. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. She looked at him, and for the first time her control slipped. "No," she said, "and yes." They walked together without speaking. That night, Alira stood alone in her room, staring at the stars. Somewhere far away, the Empire continued as if nothing had changed. They still believed she was empty, still believed they had sent her away without consequence. She rested her hand over her stomach again. The joke was no longer a joke, and the universe was about to remind an empire what it meant to be wrong. Alira did not sleep that night. She lay still, listening to the quiet hum of the human city outside her window. Lights moved like slow stars along the roads below. Earth did not rest the way the imperial capital did. It breathed constantly. Her hand rested on her abdomen. Nothing felt different yet, and that somehow made it harder to believe. For her entire life, she had been told one truth again and again. You cannot bear life. It had shaped every path, every expectation. Now that truth had broken, and she did not know who she was without it. At sunrise, Evan knocked softly on her door. He did not enter until she invited him. That respect, always present, felt heavier now. "You left quickly yesterday," he said carefully. "I was worried." She studied his face. There was no fear in his eyes, only concern. She turned away and looked out the window. "The doctors were not mistaken," she said. He waited. "I am carrying a child." The words hung in the air. Evan did not speak at once. He sat down slowly, as if grounding himself. When he finally looked at her, his voice was calm. "Are you sure?" "Yes. How do you feel?" Alira considered the question. "Afraid," she said honestly. "Confused and not alone." Evan nodded. "Those make sense." She turned back to him, searching his face. "You are not shocked." "I am," he admitted. "But humans have learned that life does not always follow rules we write for it." That simple answer eased something inside her. Not everything, but enough. They spoke for hours, about what this meant, about the Empire, about the child. Evan never once suggested what she should do. He only listened. That, too, was new to her. Human doctors began quiet research, careful not to spread the news. They respected her privacy more than imperial law ever had. They studied her biology with curiosity, not judgment. They asked permission before every test. Their findings were slow but steady. Her species had dormant genetic paths, long ignored because they rarely activated within their own environment. Human atmospheric conditions, nutrition, and emotional bonding had triggered responses never recorded before. One doctor said it plainly. "Your people stopped looking once they decided something was impossible." The words struck deep. As weeks passed, Alira adjusted to the truth growing inside her. She noticed small changes, a sensitivity to sound, shifts in appetite, a quiet warmth she carried with her always now. It felt like a secret she could almost hear breathing, but secrets do not last forever. The Empire contacted her sooner than expected. The message arrived formally, wrapped in polite concern. Her exchange would conclude early. She was to return at once. No reason was given, but Alira understood. They sensed change. They always did. She stood before the screen, her expression controlled. "I will comply." After the call ended, she felt the weight of choice press down on her. Earth had become more than a place. It had become proof that she was more than what the Empire had decided. Evan found her later in the garden. She was touching the leaves of a tree, feeling their texture. "They're calling you back," he said. "Yes." "Do you want to go?" She thought of the halls, the smiles, the quiet cruelty. She thought of the child. I have to, she said. If I don't, they will come looking. Evan nodded. Then we prepare. Preparation did not mean hiding, it meant understanding. Human scientists compiled their findings, not as weapons, but as knowledge, transparent, careful, undeniable. Alira reviewed everything herself. She asked questions. She learned. She was no longer a princess sent away. She was a mother returning with truth. The day before departure, Evan stood with her at the spaceport again. This time, the air felt different, heavy with meaning. You don't owe us anything, he said. But you're not alone in this. She looked at him, truly looked at him. You never treated me like something broken, she said. That changed everything. He smiled gently. You were never broken. As the ship lifted away from Earth, Alira felt fear tighten in her chest. But beneath it was something stronger. Resolve. The Empire awaited her with disbelief already forming. They would deny, they would question, they would try to take control, but she was no longer arriving empty-handed. She carried the future. And humanity, quietly and without force, had already changed the fate of an empire simply by refusing to accept the word impossible. The imperial capital had never felt so heavy to Alira. As her ship entered orbit, the city below looked the same as it always had. Tall white towers, perfect lines, calm order. From above, nothing showed fear or doubt, yet Alira felt it in the silence waiting for her. The Empire sensed change even if it did not yet understand it. She placed both hands over her abdomen, steadying herself. The child inside her was calm, as if unaware of the storm ahead. That calm gave her strength. When the ship landed, she was met by officials instead of family. That alone told her everything. No welcoming smiles, no polite warmth, only duty. Princess Alira, one official said, bowing stiffly, you have returned earlier than planned. Yes, she replied, at your request. They escorted her through wide halls that echoed with each step. Servants watched quietly, whispers followed. News traveled fast in the Empire, even when no one spoke aloud. She was brought before the council, the same circle of nobles, the same robes, the same cold light. One elder leaned forward. We have received concerning reports from Terra, he said. Irregular medical activity. Unapproved research. Alira met his gaze without fear. Humans are transparent with their medicine, nothing was hidden. Your condition, another noble said carefully, remains unchanged, yes. The room was very still. No, Alira said, murmurs spread instantly. Controlled but sharp. Explain, the elder demanded. I am with child, Alira said clearly. A son. Silence followed, deep and absolute. Then laughter broke out from one side of the chamber, short, disbelieving. That is not possible, a noble said. Our science is settled. Alira did not raise her voice. Your science stopped asking questions. The council reacted at once. Orders were given, medical teams summoned, scanners brought in. They surrounded her, cold and efficient. She did not resist. The scans confirmed everything. Shock replaced laughter, faces hardened, fear crept in where pride once lived. This changes nothing, one elder said sharply. The child will be placed under imperial protection. No, Alira said, every eye turned to her. This child is not a political tool, she continued. He is a life, my life. You do not have authority, another noble began. I am still a princess, Alira said, and I carry proof that our empire is wrong. They tried reason first, then control, then quiet threats hidden in polite words. Alira listened to all of it and rejected it calmly. She presented the data humans had prepared, clear records, medical logic, environmental influence, emotional bonding effects, evidence that human compatibility unlocked dormant traits in her species. The council dismissed it. Terran science is primitive, one elder said. They misunderstand what they see. Then explain the child, Alira replied. They could not. Days passed. Alira was confined to her chambers, not as a prisoner, but not free either. Guards stood outside. Doctors came and went. All imperial, all careful, none kind. She felt the pressure building. The empire could not accept what she represented. If she was right, centuries of belief collapsed. Bloodlines changed. Power shifted. That frightened them more than any enemy. Alira spent long hours alone, thinking. She remembered Earth, the gardens, Evan's quiet voice. Humans did not fear being wrong. They adjusted. That difference mattered now more than ever. One night a visitor came, high scholar Vithra, old, respected. Known for logic above politics. You have caused great disruption, Vithra said gently. Alira met her eyes. Truth often does. Vithra studied her for a long moment. The council wants control, others want denial, few want understanding. And you? Alira asked. I want survival, Vithra said. Our species is weakening, birth rates falling. We blamed biology instead of environment, instead of ourselves. Alira felt a quiet relief. Then help me. Vithra nodded slowly. The child shows hybrid markers, she said, strengthened immunity. Expanded neural pathways, this union could save us. They will fear him, Alira said. Yes, Vithra agreed, but fear can be taught into respect. The council announced a public presentation. They would show the Empire the truth on their terms. Alira knew it was a risk, but hiding would only delay the inevitable. The grand hall filled with citizens watching from across the Empire. Alira stood alone at the center. No escort, no shield. She spoke simply. She told them how she had been sent away as a joke. How humans treated her as a person, not a failure. How their science kept asking questions instead of closing books. How life answered. She revealed her son. Gasps echoed through the hall. Some cried, some stared in disbelief, some fell silent in hope. The council tried to frame it as anomaly. Alira countered with proof. Human data, imperial scans, living truth. The people listened. That was the council's mistake. Once the truth reached the people, control weakened. Messages flooded the networks. Scientists demanded access. Families asked questions. Hope spread faster than fear. That night alone again, Alira felt the child move. She smiled softly. The Empire had tried to decide her fate. Now she was deciding theirs. And humanity, far away and unaware, had already changed history without firing a single shot. The Empire did not sleep after the public presentation. Across worlds and stations, messages moved faster than official channels could slow them. Families replayed Alira's words. Scholars argued openly for the first time in generations. Medical forums filled with questions that had been forbidden before. Hope was dangerous, and the council felt it slipping beyond their control. Alira remained in her chambers, but the guards were fewer now. Their eyes were uncertain, some bowed with real respect. Others looked away, confused by feelings they had never been allowed to have. High Scholar Vithra visited often. She brought reports, not orders. Independent researchers confirm the data, Vithra said one morning. Your condition is not unique, it is rare but repeatable. Alira closed her eyes briefly. Then others like me were never broken. No, Vithra said, they were ignored. The council responded by forming committees, then oversight boards. Then more committees to oversee the oversight. It was delay disguised as order, but even delay could not stop what had started. A request arrived from Earth. Human scientists asked for joint research, shared teams, open exchange, no ownership, no control. The council laughed at the idea. Vithra did not. They offer knowledge without dominance, Vithra told them. That alone should frighten us. It is a trap, an elder argued. They want influence. They already have it, Vithra replied calmly. And they gained it by helping someone we discarded. Reluctantly, the council agreed to a limited collaboration. A gesture, they said, nothing more. The first human delegation arrived weeks later. They did not bring soldiers. They did not bring demands. They brought doctors, biologists, and engineers. They asked permission before touching anything. They shared mistakes as openly as successes. That behavior unsettled the Empire more than any threat. Alira met them in a quiet research wing. She watched as human and imperial scientists worked side by side. At first, conversations were stiff, then cautious, then curious. One human researcher looked at an old imperial medical chart and frowned. Why does this test stop here? She asked. That result was deemed irrelevant, an imperial doctor replied. The human nodded slowly. That result is the key. They ran the test again. The numbers changed everything. The Empire's reproductive failure was not a flaw in their species. It was a reaction to generations of controlled environments. Perfect balance had weakened adaptability. Humans thrived in chaos. That difference mattered. Alira listened as understanding spread room by room. The council tried to claim credit. They issued statements about strategic foresight and planned evolution. The people did not believe them. They remembered Alira standing alone, calm and honest. The council then turned to another strategy. They asked for the child. Symbolic protection, they called it. A future heir under guidance. Alira refused. This child will not be raised as property, she said. He will not be shaped by fear. You risk instability, an elder warned. No, Alira replied. You fear losing control. Public support grew stronger. Families shared stories of daughters labeled infertile, of sons dismissed as weak, of lives shaped by a single word spoken too early. The empire began to change not by command but by choice. Human methods spread quietly. Open data, peer review. Emotional health considered alongside physical. Failure treated as information, not shame. Alira walked freely now. She visited medical centers. She spoke with citizens. She listened more than she spoke. One young noble approached her during a public forum. If humans helped you, he asked, does that make us lesser? Alira smiled gently. No, it means we have something to learn. That is not weakness. Late one evening, she stood in a garden overlooking the city. The lights below felt warmer than before, less rigid, more alive. She thought of Evan. She sent him a message, brief and honest. The empire is changing because you did not try to change it. His reply came hours later. That's what humans do. We make room. Life fills it. Her son moved again, stronger now. She rested both hands over him, feeling a future that no longer felt heavy. The council still existed. Power never vanished overnight, but it no longer stood alone. Knowledge stood with it, people stood with it, and humanity, quietly and without force, stood beside it. The empire had sent an infertile princess away as a joke. She was returning their future, and this time they were listening. The birth happened quietly. There were no grand halls, no watching nobles, no ceremonial words spoken too early. Alira chose a simple medical center filled with light and calm voices. Human and imperial doctors worked together, not as rivals but as equals. They spoke clearly, checked each other's work, and adjusted when something did not go as expected. For the first time in imperial history, uncertainty was not treated as failure. Alira focused on breathing, on staying present, on the life she carried reaching the world safely. When her son cried for the first time, the sound was small but powerful. It cut through years of belief and silence. The room grew still. Even the doctors paused, listening. He was alive, strong, real. Alira held him against her chest. His skin was warm, his fingers curled around hers with surprising strength. In that moment, titles meant nothing. She was not a princess. She was a mother. News spread quickly, but not wildly. The empire had learned restraint. Official announcements came after confirmation, after permission. The people waited not because they were ordered to, but because they respected her choice. When the image was finally released, it showed nothing dramatic. Just Alira seated by a window, holding her son as light touched his face. The response was overwhelming. Across the empire, messages poured in. Gratitude, relief, wonder. Parents held their children closer. Doctors reopened old files. Scholars rewrote long-closed theories. The word infertile began to disappear from official language, replaced by unknown and unexplored. The council met again, but this time the room felt different, less rigid, less certain of itself. High Scholar Vithra spoke first. The child shows no signs of instability, she said. In fact, his health markers exceed the imperial average. An elder shifted uncomfortably. What of succession? That decision belongs to the future, Vithra replied. Not to fear, they voted. Not unanimously, but clearly. Princess Alira would retain full guardianship of her son. Human and imperial research would continue jointly. Reproductive law would be rewritten. No citizen would be defined by a single diagnosis again. It was not a revolution, it was correction. Alira addressed the empire once more, holding her son in her arms. She did not speak of blame, she spoke of responsibility. We believed we were finished, she said calmly. But we stopped asking questions too soon. Humans reminded us that life changes when we let it. She paused, letting the moment settle. They did not conquer us, they did not command us. They simply treated one discarded life as valuable. Silence followed, then agreement. Then applause, not loud but deep. Months passed. The empire stabilized, then strengthened. Birth rates slowly rose as environments changed and understanding grew. Medical centers adopted human openness. Data flowed freely. Young scientists asked questions without fear. Humanity's reputation changed as well. They were no longer seen as reckless newcomers. They were recognized as problem solvers who refused to accept limits without testing them. A species that did not see impossible as an ending. Evan visited when travel allowed. He met Alira's son in the same garden where they once spoke of trying anyway. The child looked at him with curious eyes and grabbed his finger. He's strong, Evan said softly. He is human in that way, Alira replied with a small smile. Stubborn, hopeful. They walked together, watching the city move below them. It no longer felt cold. Far across the stars, other civilizations would hear the story. Some would laugh, some would doubt. Some would quietly send their own questions to Earth, and humanity would answer as it always had, with patience, with openness. With the simple belief that no life should be dismissed too early. The Empire had sent away an infertile princess as a joke. She returned with a son. And humanity had proven, once again, that their greatest strength was not power, but the refusal to give up on what others had already abandoned.